Swanton Village Board of Trustees. Before we get started, I'd like to have all of your help and see what day it is. September 11th, 2017, 16 years after our fatal attack on the New York City skyline. I'd like to have everyone stand and join with me in a moment of silence for remembering 9/11. Okay, thank you. And for the audience, which we don't usually have an audience, I'd like to introduce the table here. If you don't know us, Adam Paxman, trustee, Eugene LeBombard, Chris Leach, the senior member, Neil Spear, president, Lynn, our comptroller, assistant village manager, and Mr. Bellamo, which is our village manager, and Diane is in the audience tonight. So, first order of business, any agenda review, revision for this evening? If not, we're going to go through our regular bulletproof stuff first, and then we'll have our informational meeting in the middle of the agenda. So, item number 3 on our agenda, that is pretty high for me. Approve and accept the minutes from Monday, August 28th, 2017, from our regular meeting.
I would so move.
Second.
Well done as usual.
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded to approve and accept the minutes from our Monday, August 28th, 2017 meeting. Any discussion?
No.
Anywhere? If not, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion is carried. Item number 4, to approve and accept the village warrants through September 8th, 2017. I have a copy of those in your packet.
I'll move they be approved.
I'll second that one.
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded to approve and accept the village warrants through September 8th, 2017. Is there any discussion, questions on the warrants?
Yes, 77. Maybe Lynn could explain that one to us?
77.
Yeah, see,
It's the first installment on the rubber bag.
Oh, okay. Hey, here. Explain.
HTE,
Yeah.
Hydrotech Engineering.
Why do we call it unified project? Oh.
Let's see.
Yeah, he shows up as unified.
That's the cash account.
Okay.
Okay.
She said that's the cash account.
That's the cash account for the special project.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. So that's our first payment on the new dam. Okay. Any more questions? If not, all those in favor of approving and accepting the warrants signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion is carried. And now the big event for the evening. Item number 5, our informational meeting and public hearing on the replacement rubber bag for our hydro project dam in Highgate. This is the informational meeting for the bond vote, which is next week, September 19th. So make sure everybody hears and marks that date down out there that's listening to Channel 16. Next Tuesday, September 19th.
7 to 7.
And yeah, that's a 12-hour vote, 7 to 7, here at the Village Complex.
Is it on the board in the park already?
I can ask Dave tomorrow, but
The message board.
The message
yeah,
board?
I'll make sure it is.
The digital board
I don't know about it. It will be, for sure.
in our sign out
Yeah,
front?
we'll have to sign it.
We'll have a voting sign up.
Is that going to be out now? You probably
Well, I think it
should,
says
just to
vote
get
today,
people
doesn't
to-
it?
Yeah, the sign says vote today.
It says vote today, so.
Oh, I'd be ordering a new sign. Don't forget to vote on September. blah, blah, blah.
Put a special message.
Okay, with that said, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Reg Belleville, our village manager, who's going to give us a briefing on what our situation is up there and what the process is replacing.
Okay.
Reg?
I want to thank Lynn for all the work too on putting the presentation together, and we both looked at it, but I'm going to take a minute and just run through basically what the area looked like during the deflation. So this is, you can see the water, or you can't see maybe. Probably drop number 2, please, Tony.
Want to turn the lights?
Yeah, hit number 2. Yeah,
Better.
there you go.
Is that okay for you, Heather?
Does that have enough light?
And this shows the area of deflation. So if you look right up in here, when he brings back the camera. Right there. So that's right up, that's along a fold right up against the abutment wall is where we figured that became a weak spot, and the air found its way through and started coming out there. So we have that. This is a slow walkthrough of when, obviously at this point, we decided that we're not going to go in and do an emergency repair for the fear that I didn't know if this tear was going to start going laterally, right straight across, and if I put somebody in to do an emergency repair and it ruptures while somebody's in there, we're going to do it. So in this fashion here, we said, well, we're just going to let it go, have a systematic release, slow release, and you see in a couple of other slides it actually did pick up in intensity, but it wasn't any more unusual than a spring runoff, a good spring runoff for us. You can see that's pretty much within the first, I'd say within the first 10 to 15 minutes. You see how the pond was. We have issues now where you can see this area here. But this pond is still going down, but this area here of silt is a concern of ours now, because this is starting to get into this area here where the intake structure is, right here. And that's causing a lot of issues.
Any way to hold it back?
The only other alternative we may have is to try to have a clamshell take out a lot of that silt, get it out of the way. But this is an effect of the low river. Now this is what the bag looks like now. Basically completely deflated. And the intake, Unit 5, is down here, and you can see Unit 5 is running. So when we have all the units running, obviously there's not enough water going through the penstock that allows the units to run efficiently. So thus we have to back them down, and occasionally you're going to get spillover. So at this height, the 175 above sea level for the 30 feet isn't, the plant can't run efficiently. I'll show. There's another one here that was pretty intense. So this is when the bag started to inflate even more. So this is basically the highest point. This started to, at this point the air was releasing here more. Now the impoundment's coming out. So we've actually seen it where it was 10 feet over that bag. So the bag is deflated, the stormwater is 10 feet above it. So this is pretty normal spring runoff. This you can see now what's happening. The bag is actually almost empty of air. The river's flowing over it, and the bag is kind of doing this now. You know, oscillating. So this was a scary moment too. We didn't know if it was all of a sudden just going to rip off the abutments, or if it was going to continue doing what it was doing. So when we got to this point, he went and opened up the emergency relief, and it just helped with the deflation and stuff. So when we first got the alarm, so the original bag was installed in the early 1990s, so I believe it was 2000 or 1991, 92. These are some plugs of the dam. If you want to just take a look how thick that rubber is. You've seen it. So the life of the dam is estimated to be 25 years, and next year is 25 years. So you know that we've started the process, we've talked about it, we saw some delamination, we had professionals come up and take a look at this thing. They said, you know, we could repair it, you could get probably another 5-6 years, or we could replace it. So we did had them give us estimates on what it would cost to repair, replace, and then ultimately it came out that it was actually better for us to replace it altogether. So then we started that process of the replacement, started to get engineers lined up, contractors lined up, and then once we said, okay, we're going to do it, trustees voted, next month it does this. So the dam is 220 feet long, 15 feet in diameter, and so it brings the dam height up. So back in the early 90s, the dam height was 170, they added 5 feet of concrete and then the 15-foot bag. So it brings it up to 190 above sea level, or the 30 feet. And that's its optimal operations level, is the 190 or the 30 feet. Bridgestone notified us back around 2010 or so that they're no longer going to manufacture these bags. If we want one, better start now. And they're like, well, we're not really ready to replace it. And then other manufacturers started coming to us and say, hey, we make one, and we finally settled on HTE. So they said on July at about 2:15 in the afternoon, blowers kicked in, one of them tripped out. The operator went and reset the blower. It restarted, but blower 2 picked up also. So the operator says, well, that's not usual. So they went out to investigate and did a visual inspection and saw that leak that we showed you. So we just talked about this. We decided, not going to put anybody inside it. And not going to do it. Let's just have a systematic release and we'll figure it out. So in this, when anything like this happens, we got to activate the EAP, Emergency Action Plan. And in there, it's everybody, federal officials, state officials, and local emergency responders. We're all notified. So we just let it have a systematic release. And we had Highgate Fire monitoring Wall Farm Road, Swanton Fire was monitoring the village near the Lower Swanton Dam. And I just saw a boater out there still fishing. It was a little rough, but it was still fishing. And another reason why it's like a slow release like that is a lot better than all of a sudden having a complete tear and you've got a 15-foot wall of water, about 78 acres behind it, I think, coming at you. And if that were to happen, Wall Farm is the laydown area for the water. So that big cornfield and everything, the water would have went into there, but eventually would have came into the village. We've had analysis done where it would say, probably River Lane would probably get water. Obviously, the park, Marble Mill, and Goose Point would probably get flooded. So plant operations, in the aftermath of the dam deflation, 15-foot of loss, the plant isn't designed to run at that level, the 175. We're experiencing a lot of issues. There's been sludge in the surge tank. We just had it vectored out. It was, what did he say, I think like 2 foot of sludge.
It was about a $3,000 bill.
Yeah. You get that sludge out. And silt, so the way the plant is designed is grabbing cooling water from the penstocks to help cool the bearings, and that silt is getting in there. And the operator's got to pay close attention to make sure they get in there and keep those strainers clean of this silt. So this is happening more often than not. And then the trash racks get plugged up with debris. Because if you look, you've got now 15 foot of rack that doesn't have water in it. You have more surface area, so less possibilities of that rack plugging up. But now, because it's lower, it plugs up very quickly. So the operators have to go out and rake the racks. So the next steps. Fortunately, we had talked about replacing it. The manufacturer was basically already pre-designing a lot of the design for the bag, the shipping, and everything else. So they were pretty much already figuring it out on paper what needed to happen. So when the trustees approved doing everything, they said it was going to be over 6 months lead time. When I called them up that afternoon and told them what was happening, he called me back the next morning and said, we can push this into 3 months. So a lot of the issues, a lot of the reasons why we're moving as fast as we have to is because when the weather gets cold, the rubber becomes less pliable for installation. Thus, it'll be even more costly to heat that whole space. So imagine 220 feet of a tent over that rubber to keep it heated enough to be able to tie it to the head of the dam. Okay. So we selected the contractor. We talked about this at some of our other meetings, Pizzigalli, PC Construction, and CCS, Contractors Crane Service out of Morrisville, are going to be the contractor for this. H.L. Turner is going to be our engineering support. Paul Nolan's our FERC attorney, so helping with the permits, both state and federal permits at this point. The last conversation I had with HTE, the Hydrotech Engineering, the manufacturer of the bag, their production has been going pretty smoothly. They're still expecting to ship end of September, and we would love it if the hurricanes would stay the heck away, because they're going to ship into Louisiana, then from Louisiana into New Jersey, and then from New Jersey take a road trip up into Highgate.
Where are they out of? Where are they out of?
China.
Oh, they are the Chinese firm.
Yeah.
It's an American company.
It's an American-based company, China-based manufacturer, but they have a company in Utah. So installation is expected to be finished by mid-February. Pizzigalli is anticipating 3 weeks to 4 weeks to install. So they're going to have to put a roadway in front of that dam, and I'll show some other pictures when we get to that point.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're going to mention it later, but I think you're talking about why we want to move this as fast. If we don't do it this fall, before cold weather, we'll have to wait till after the spring runoff, which will be even, put us in the hole, so to speak, even farther. So urgency is ultimate here.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll cover the expenses. And good segue. This here's your pointer, the red one, and then it should back and forth.
So we had Vermont Public Power Supply run some analysis numbers for us. They're our consultant that handles a lot of our purchase power. And the analysis they came out with is, without the 15-foot rubber dam, the monetary impact for the first year alone is going to be a minimum of $275,000. Which in a normal circumstance, that's enough to warrant a rate increase for us. And that amount is estimated to increase each year. And they ran it through 2024 first, because that's when our FERC license renews. So they said we'd have a cumulative impact through 2024 of 1.8 million. And then over the 25-year life of the rubber dam, the impact is 5.7 million if we don't do the dam project. So the new dam will be a 25-year life. The project costs are estimating at 2.2 million. The bond payment, I got a bond quote from both Vermont Bond Bank and through a local bank. The bond payback would be over 25 years, because that's what the Public Utility Commission is requesting, that we match our bond payment to our depreciable life. So it would be a 25-year loan payback. So the principal payment's $88,000 a year in principal plus interest. So for 2018, we would pay interest only in November. 2019 is when we make the first bond payment, and that debt service for that year would be $152,000. And that number will not impact our rates. We can absorb that into what we've got. So what we're doing to keep our rates level is, we're right now currently, before the bag ruptured, 100% renewable. So for 2017, we were able to get out of some of our renewable contracts that the state was mandating that utilities purchase, which is saving us $150,000 a year, which ironically is very close to what the principal and interest payment is going to be. If we don't do the rubber bag, we will no longer be 100% renewable. Thus, we will not be able to get out of that. We'd have to pay that contract, so we would be back to paying that $150,000 a year. Our hydro facility is in the process of being taken out of the power market. We're hoping for this fall. And what it'll do is, it'll be back like it was the old days, where you're basically shedding your load. Right now, everything we make gets sold out on the market, and we have to buy it all back. By doing this, it load sheds, so it doesn't go out into the market, and we just shed our load. And then if we need anything over and above our hydro project, we go out and we buy it. We'll have market contracts to secure that. That's an estimated potential $1 million savings a year in purchase power. So we're hoping that we can get this done. Going forward, it would be considered that we were behind the meter, which we would use generation to offset load. And that's the way it used to be back in the 1990s, and they changed it late 1990s. The other thing that we're seeing in our utility is an increase of solar customers in our service territory. That has a negative impact on our rates. We're losing revenue for these, and at some point in time, there's a lot of utilities that are at the point where that's going to cause a rate increase. For us, it will at some point, unless we get, the hydro facility out of the power market. If we do that, our rates should stay fairly stable for the next 4 to 5 years. If we can't get that out, the solar is really going to affect us sooner rather than later.
I'm just going to go back real quick. So if you're looking at the initial impact, if we don't do anything, about $275,000 a year, well, you add the 150 on that also as a loss. So your loss is obviously much greater than the 275, and that's a conservative figure that BEPSA sent to us. Okay, and again, one of the reasons why the PUC, Public Utilities Commission, wanted us just to amortize it up to 2024. So they wanted to know what the impact is going to be, and about $1.5 million to, or 1.8 to about 2.2 million impact for those years. So there's been a lot of stuff that Lynn said that our joint action agency, BEPSA, has been working on to try to save money. in anticipation. We had some bonds drop off. This being 100% renewable, they found that we could drop off that $150,000 a year. Since then, I believe it's the Public Service Board is trying to rescind that option, so other utilities don't go to that too, because they're losing money for, is it Efficiency Vermont?
No, it's just the Becky
Becky
units,
units.
small power generation.
What are the chances that they won't get approved?
That is approved, the 150. The other behind the meter, so Lynn said peak shading. Basically, that $1 million savings is we don't pay transmission charges on our generation, because what we generate, we send it out, and we got to buy it back. Well, back in the day when this was designed, the purpose of this dam was to supply our customers. If we don't meet our customer load, i.e. the river's low, if we're not, the generators aren't running as much, we buy electricity. Well, that's what we pay instead of sending all of our stuff out and bringing it back in. Okay? There are other VEPSA members that have hydro that have been able to retire. The reason why we're behind the 8 ball on this is because we're so large. There was a lot of other things we had to do prior to be able to send our request in to go behind the meter.
Once you're behind the meter, are you always and forever behind the meter? So you've
Yes,
retired
yes, you could get back in
the dam
eventually.
from,
Yeah. So one of the advantageous parts of this is because, well, one, the transmission charges, but two, the wholesale market right now is so low on electricity, we're really not making a lot on our power. Back in the day, I mean, we were making hand over fist because wholesale markets were crazy.
When I first got here, through the summer months, like starting at spring runoff and until like July, VEPSA would send us a check, a sizable check, every month because our generation was getting paid so well on the open market. But now, it's not.
it hasn't been for a while.
No, it hasn't.
Yeah. And we saw it coming, but when it hit here, it hit pretty hard, it hit quick.
It's almost like a blessing in disguise. I can say that because I'm in the audience.
Yeah. So
Well, we would have changed, we were gonna change the bag anyway.
I know,
Within a year.
it was going 7 years ago, so what I'm wondering is, did we put any money away for this bag in the last 7 years, just to get a,
We weren't able to.
We weren't allowed to.
We weren't allowed to.
No, we're not.
When we go in and get our rates, when we do a rate case, and they look at what your debt service is, what you can get on a tier, which is what's, in theory, is supposed to pay your debt principal payments, and what our depreciation was, we didn't have enough. In theory, your depreciation is supposed to be what's getting set aside for capital expenditures in future years. And what they were telling us is, no, you're going to take out debt for everything. And because I wanted a higher tier to pay my principal payments. And they said, no, you got to take that out of your depreciation number. And, oh, by the way, if you guys need a new pickup truck, you need to go get debt for it. And it really was not, I don't see the benefit to that because you're paying interest on your debt. Their theory is that our current ratepayers are paying for something that will benefit future ratepayers. But if you think about it, if you're always putting that money away, everybody's always getting the benefit because you might be putting it in the bank today, but a ratepayer from 5 years ago put the money away that's buying what you're getting this year. So on one hand kind of washed the other, but I couldn't get them to bite into that way. So unfortunately, we have to take out debt for the whole process. But in good news is the rest of the hydro bonds are pretty much coming to the end of their useful life, minus Unit 5. And with the 2 bonds that are remaining on the original project, we had to put in returning contingency funds. And those balances are high enough that one of the bonds, we won't have a debt service payment on it its final year because we've got enough money sitting in the bank to pay that. And the other one is like a year and a half's worth of payments. So one matures in 2019 and one in 2023. So, we're looking at, we've got what's over $1 million sitting in the bank that's required by the bonding agencies to cover if we default on a payment. But we'll be able to use those to make the final payments of those, which will save us, you know, $600,000 on one of them, you know, is one final year payment. So it's a good thing we've got that sitting there. But yeah, our debt service is coming down, definitely with that department.
Can you go back to that last slide, Reggie, please? Yep.
So what
think
I,
it's probably your most important slide.
so what we've got is, right now in our rates, we have depreciation on the old bag. And until we go into a rate increase, that depreciation stays in our rates, which is at a higher level than this new bag will depreciate at, because we were doing catch-up depreciation on the other bag. So you've got interest dropping off, and I forgot to mention, all of our bonds have refunded in the last couple of years to a lower interest rate. So we have one of the bonds that we're receiving more money in interest credits than what the interest actually is that we have to pay. So it's like, it's not a lot, it's probably $6,000 more of a credit, but that goes against the principal. So that's kind of a good thing. And so anyways, we'll have that, you know, so that's why we aren't going to impact rates with this right now, because the depreciation is in there at a higher level than what it's going to be, and that we've had, you know, debt service come off. So it's kind of already embedded in our rates.
The depreciation on that bag must be just about up. It's 25 years.
Yeah, we would have depreciated it, the final year was next year, but in electric utility world, your generation assets depreciate until you get rid of them. So, and then, you know, it stays in your rates until you do a rate case.
So we've been hearing a lot, not a lot, we've been hearing some rumblings from people that, other people that don't have enough knowledge about what the utility is offering the community are giving misinformation to other people rather than them calling us and asking us, is this true, is that true? We're finding out that people are getting misled a lot. There's no dog and pony show here. There's no smoke and mirrors. This is true up stuff. Our past trustees in 1894 were looking after the village and saying this was a good idea. This is still a good idea today in 2017. We are still one of the lowest in the state. We were the lowest back in 1894. Obviously, we were the first municipality to own a hydro facility. So I think it's important for people to understand how critical this is to our community. Otherwise, I would say that if we cannot get that bag and have it back up, that this plant would be basically dead. And we would have to purchase our power out on the open markets. And well, the GMPs are 17 or 23 cents. The KW right now we're 11 point something, I think. So you would see the significant increase where we are today. Just
Did you do a
quick.
slide of that at all? You know, just to show if we didn't have this and we had to go out and buy our power, an average bill of, you know, however many kilowatts an average home is.
It's going to be double.
I guarantee your light bill to double.
But if that, people need to know that.
If you want to sell this, you need to tell people, this is what you're paying now. If we don't do this, this is what you may pay.
Yeah.
So we look in the camera tonight and we say, if this bag doesn't get approved, you can expect your rates to double.
You'll have to
If you
essentially-
do approve it, your rates most likely will not go up because of this project.
Right.
Now, if more solar comes into our community, that's a different story. But right now, with this project, our rates would not go up. And like I said, we talked about everything that we've been trying to put in place, that VEPS has been helping us put into place, is making sure that we're going to be still lowest rates.
Some other utilities have gone the solar route, you know, and putting in solar fields. Is that something that we've ever entertained, or are we just focusing on our hydro?
We're 100% renewable right now, so I wouldn't see a reason to do it.
I don't know why they do it, I'm just.
But because they don't have what we have for generation.
They do
Oh,
it.
They don't
Yeah,
generate.
because they don't have the hydro.
Yep.
Yes,
Well, they
exactly.
do it because this law says you have to have so much of renewable percentage-wise of your load. If you do it yourself, it's more beneficial than wanting it from somebody else.
So going forward, they call Tier 1, Tier 2 requirements. So we are going to have to abide by Tier 1 and Tier 2 requirements. I believe we're already in Tier 1.
Tier 1, we're abiding by
Yeah.
already.
But then Tier 2, we're going to start having to look for ways to abide by those.
For a while, our hydro wasn't recognized as renewable. But through some crafty work by our manager and VEPSA, it's now recognized, which is a big deal.
It is.
Even with the solar, by not doing this bag, it just compounds the issue.
Yes, yes.
The solar and the wind power, they're guaranteed an above wholesale price power for every kilowatt they produce. We aren't guaranteed that every bit of electricity we produce is going to be sold. When you have to buy this above the wholesale price power, they're guaranteed the money or the credit. That has to be passed on to your consumer because it's a real cost to the business. But
So,
if
just-
we work it the way we're anticipating, our costs for purchase power will be less.
This is a murky area because we're supposed to be 100% renewable.
And 90
They said, well, whatever it is, but, you know, solar and wind, we should be in the same classification.
So one of the things that I think people have, we probably don't articulate this well enough, and we probably should. We're public power, so it means we are non-for-profit. Whatever we make above that 1.25 tier goes back into the company itself to poles, wires, upgrades, whatever. Okay, these solar projects, they are for profit. Okay, these companies, Sun Commons and all these other folks, they are for profit. So when they're guaranteeing you a steady rate, their shareholders are making money. This utility is making no profit on it. We're allowing you low rates. So that's the difference. Public power has been around forever. But that's the difference. We're nonprofit.
Are they still, with solar, are they still giving tax credits, federal government and with the state?
Not as much as they used to now.
Right,
There's still federal subsidies,
but
different
that-
forms.
From what I'm reading, they be phased out.
Yes. I believe they're going to be phased out, yes.
And
It'll be interesting to see then what happens.
well, they say they're going to phase them out. They said they were going to phase them out. They've dropped off in their significance, but they're still there. And if the green movement still is popular, they're still going to somehow subsidize it. The thing about our green power, our turbines are rebuildable. The photo process of converting electricity is not
Photovoltaic
rebuildable.
cells.
You have to throw them away and build new ones.
Yeah.
And there are some exotic materials in those panels that have to be extracted from the earth, not in the United States. And that's doing a great amount of harm to the environment. It's a lot of things people don't understand about this. And the best minds tell us that no matter the amount of electricity that's being used has somewhat diminished over the last few years because people are buying more efficient appliances. Some businesses have moved out of the country, the load is not as high, but that's pretty much bottomed out. Businesses are coming back. If they think in 8 years from now that there are going to be more electric cars on the road than gas-powered cars, they've got to be recharged somewhere. So the need for electricity is going to go back in the other direction. And solar and wind, nobody's thinking that there'll ever be more than a single-digit percentage of the electricity that's produced in the country. So they can't keep up with the load.
You look at what they're doing with Hydro-Quebec with these transmission lines going down.
Hydro-Quebec is basically hydro. They're building another whole set of dams, and they want to electrify the whole East Coast. More power to them.
They're building these transmission lines to New York, to New England,
Yeah.
and that's clean power. I don't care what anyone says, you know. What we do is clean power.
I think you all did a great job with this presentation. It's, it explains a lot. I think it will be helpful for people. I hope people watch it. I know Tom will do a really good job of putting it in layman's terms. So when it hits the messenger, we'll all be able to see what it is. But good job, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. The power plant has always been Swanton's jewel. I mean, from 1894 to 2017. If the politics change a little bit and we're able to adjust our rate schedule, we could do wonderful things with businesses that want to come here. We have the opportunity. Everybody else, they don't have the power, they have to buy it. We were, you know, Vermont was kind of smart. When everybody was divesting, we didn't do that. You know, they wanted you to just go and have a bunch of people generating power, and a bunch of companies transmitting the power, and then you be the distribution company. But we do all three. And that way we control our destiny so much better than everybody else.
So, and just real quick, so, you know, not to crap on you, Chris, but, you know, when we say that, you know, people need to understand, it's our job to make sure that we help you understand why this is important. So when people need to understand, I mean, there's only so many avenues out there for us to give this information to. And Chris and I have been to a few meetings. I've been to some meetings myself in Highgate. Channel 15 I've done it there. I've done it in the town meetings. So we've tried to get the information out there. But, you know, all different kinds of media. But you'll always find a person that says, you know, I didn't hear about that. It's like, other than skywriting, I don't know how else to get it out there. But
Have food.
Food, yeah, offer food on, I don't know if I can do that. Girl Scout cookies during election?
Has the state given you a lot of problems in fixing this?
Okay, so it's a good question. Has the state given us any problems? No. Quick answer. We've talked to them up front, back when we said we were going to do the replacement. They said that they didn't see any issues. Army Corps doesn't see any issues either. They're sending our last proposal to the other agencies, federal and state agencies, because the roadway has to be built larger. We'll show you here real quickly in some slides. The roadway has to be built a little larger because larger cranes. Okay, the dam is being delivered differently than the original dam was. Okay, so because there was different than the design is different than the original design, we had to do a Category 2, they call it, application. So we're guessing that this will go through also. FERC is limited their all this paperwork and all the designs have to go to them. They're streamlining their reviews to make sure this goes through. So I mean, everybody out there understands how critical this is, that with spring runoff, what it would do to the plant, what it would do to our lost revenue to our customers if we lose that. So they get it. I mean, the PUC and the Public Service Board, it went right through. The 108, they approved it. Now we just need our voters to get behind us now too. Because I mean, everybody we thought would be our biggest opponents actually behind us on this.
Hopefully this vote goes the right way, but let's say for argument's sake, if it doesn't, what happens then?
I'm going to have rose-colored glasses on, but I'm going to say it's going to go.
Yeah, it's going to go. But we just do it again.
And I hope it does, but
Please tell everybody you can.
Speak to the people that you know.
Yeah, call us. I mean, don't listen to somebody that doesn't work
Hearsay.
here, hearsay. You gotta come and see us. I mean, because we're not snake oil salesmen, I'm telling you, it's, not, I don't know, I don't wanna,
If it doesn't go through, Tony, Swan Village Electric will self-destruct. That's serious.
that's why it's so important. I don't know if you take an ad out in the newspaper,
We get the mornings and
you're going to?
Tom did a great article.
Well, I know he's here right now, but this message has got to get out to
But
people
he did
because,
an article a month ago, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it
been in
was
the paper.
all right.
I read it.
Yeah.
And what Reggie said is right on. The ones that will, that either will or are thinking about voting against this are very uninformed. They don't know what's going on.
Well, other situations where involved infrastructure, people say, well, I don't want my taxes to go up. And they don't understand that, some people don't understand that you bond this and it doesn't really affect them, but it will affect them.
Right, if we
What-
don't
If
do
you don't
this,
do
the
this.
rates
Right,
will go up.
right. The rates are going to go way up.
If we don't do it,
If, we
it's
don't.
estimated to be 100%.
Yeah.
That's drastic.
I think it's so
Just
important that the public really knows. My light bill now is I'm throwing these numbers, $56, and without this dam, it could be $125. I lived in Williston for a lot of years, and I was on,
Those that are sort of on the fence, have them go talk to their friends out in West Swanton that
Maybe
are on a
anybody
different
that's-
power company
Let's see if you
and ask them.
Green Mountain Power
oh,
or the co-op. Ask them what their bill is.
but I was just going to say, my bill from living in Williston, no exaggeration, was 3 times higher than what I pay here. 3 times.
I lived in St. Albans before I moved here and bought the house here, and I had CVPS at the time. When I moved, the lady said, well, where are you moving to? I said, Swanton. And she said, well, we can't compete with those rates. She was honest. She said, you're going to move to another town? I said, no, I'm moving to Swanton. And I know what I paid in St. Albans for about the same amount, and it was probably double what we paid here.
So I want to get Lynn home for her anniversary here.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
Sorry I put it on TV, but. Trying to get her home. So back in the 1990s, this is what was built. So this was the original dam. There were flashboards here. This is the roadway that's going to have to get built. You can see the trucks hauling stuff in. So that was the old dam. So what they did was basically they filled this in with concrete and brought it up another 5 feet. You see some of the work there. So this is there's the trash rate now as it exists. This was before where Unit 5 is housed now, the other powerhouse, and the control room wasn't there. But you see how easily accessible it was for this crane, and this crane only had to go a partial way over. And these are the bolts right here. They're going to be put in the bag on the top. You can see it went through the winter of this project. Also, all of this infrastructure back here, this all got washed out once. We had a spring runoff and stuff, cleaned everything right out. You had to redo everything. Again in the winter. Okay, so here's the bolts. You see the tent that they had to build? This is what may happen if we,
Delay.
yep. That's why it was urgent that we moved as well as we did. Removing the sheet piling. I'm just going to skim through here quickly. And this is when they're laying the bag on, obviously. Here's the
Chris,
roll.
you remember that?
I do.
You do?
I was here.
Me too. I wasn't part of you guys, but I was up there watching.
There's the rubber.
It was interesting. Of more interest to me was the piece of equipment that they had to use.
Oh, it's just.
I understood the bags, I've seen them before. The equipment's huge. Comes in
Maybe
pieces.
again,
This is-
probably.
This is where the cold weather will hinder us, getting these holes punched and getting them on those threaded bolts, get it tied down.
Yeah, that's what those are, those little plugs are, had to be drilled or whatever, so the bolts could go through.
Can they put this in the rain?
Oh, yeah.
Because we have had a lot of that.
You can see here, they came in on that roadway, but they're using this bucket loader to push the bag over the bolts. Here's the metal plates. Here's the roadway again. Here's the dam on the roller. It's hard to see, but there's crane hoists that, basically that crane was on the other side, brought it halfway over, the other one tagged it and finished dragging it across the top.
How much does that weigh?
40-something tons.
48 ton?
94,000 pounds coming through.
Wow.
Here's some more, these are some pretty decent pictures here.
A full truckload.
Yeah, full truck, that's right.
Railroad car.
And it's gonna have to be in the hull of the boat, because they said they put it on top of the ship, it'll flip the ship, so it's gotta be in the hull. So, the roadway again, so what's gonna happen, this is gonna get unraveled up off of Mill Hill Road, get punched there, and then it's gonna get carried down through that roadway on top of the dam. This is what it looked like when it came in. Okay, a bunch of them, so I'm not.
Yeah. Nice history.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you, folks, for your patience. Any other questions at all?
Just as
Thank you. I think it's also interesting to add one thing here, just emphasize it. We're in the process of getting a new one. So this just moves things up.
And it moves it up a little more
We've lost.
because of the weather, and you're getting a 3 monthly time instead of 6.
2 months of generation.
Yeah, we've had such a wet summer that we've lost a lot of
Can you
generation.
imagine that what we've lost?
Because right now,
I think of it when it rains so hard.
what's been coming through for generation, what I'm seeing through BEPSA is very close to what we did last year, and we've had a much better year.
Yeah.
So we lost some revenue.
That's for sure.
It's the only time you like rain, when you own a hydro plant.
And if it's any consolation, this bag that we're replacing now is cheaper than the one we priced 10 years ago.
Maybe that was.
Not that that's
I
a
think it's
big
cheaper than the
consolation,
original one too.
but
Yeah.
it is less expensive than
And there's
the first one that we.
Technology.
some really nice technical innovations with this bag too. It's still just like a tire. It's fabric, rubber, fabric, rubber, fabric, rubber, but the fabric is laid in such a way that it makes the bag stronger and less likely to fatigue. Which is what happens. If the bag for 20 years is sitting there, if you ever go up there, it's vibrating. Well, any material that's constantly moving eventually fatigues.
So is there any more questions on the dam replacement? If not, that concludes our informational meeting, and we'll go back into our regular meeting.
Please encourage everyone to come and vote in the affirmative.
So we've got
Please.
Just the
Yeah,
rest.
village residents.
Village residents.
Village residents.
Yeah, village residents only.
And our response to negative votes was not an ultimatum, it was just a reality check. Because this has been coming up, but it's just, we're pushed into it. And I think I can speak for the board, we're all in it for what is best for our community. That's why we're here, so. And we'd appreciate the support for the new bag, so.
Basically, you tell people your rates are gonna double if this thing doesn't go in.
Yeah.
Well, that's as simple as it can be.
So,
And there's anticipated no increase in rates with the new dam.
I know, I love that.
yeah.
Good job.
That's rather fortunate.
Yes.
Okay. So that concludes our informational meeting. Next item is any other necessary business. Okay, public comment. We have some public tonight. We don't usually have any public, so does the public wish to comment? If not, executive session, we don't have any executive session?
Yeah,
Or
we
do
have
we?
legal matters we gotta discuss.
Yes.
Okay. That being said, I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss legal matters.
Second.
Okay, so we're out of executive session. We had a discussion on legal matters. We made a decision. The decision that we made was to enter into an agreement with Enosburg Falls Electric to team up on our relicensing of our hydro and their hydro, if they're agreeable to it.
Yep.
That's the decision we made.
The only thing I would add would be could be a 60-40 split in cost.
So the contractor that's going to do the work on the pad, the pre-application document, that would be the 60-40. Paul Nolan is right down the middle for both of us, because he says that work is identical regardless, but the other stuff, the contractor is going to be different because it'll be our two dams.
Okay, makes sense.
Fair enough.
Okay. That being said, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adjourn this village trustees meeting for September 11th, 2017. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you, gentlemen. This meeting is adjourned.